Ahoy there, mateys! I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Oral Reports. Now, does anyone remember the classic 1883 Robert Louis Stevenson novel, Treasure Island? Well, I sure as heck do, and ever since I read this book during my elementary days, I thought this book was a very thrilling adventure story. Plus, it's been about 3 years since I talked about this story when I blogged The Page Master. However, when it comes to movie adaptations, folks can mostly think of the 1950s live-action Disney classic starring Bobby Driscoll, or the 1996 Muppet adaptation. But did you know that Disney made an animated sci-fi adaptation? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. Released on November 27th, 2002, the movie is Treasure Planet. So, let's get started, mateys. Jim Hawkins is a rebellious teenager seen as a slacker with no future. But one fateful night, a dying pirate named Billy Bones gives Jim a map that leads to the legendary loot of Captain Nathaniel Flint. During his voyage, Jim finds a mentor in the crew's cook, a cyborg named John Silver, and he shows Jim the makings of a fine shipmate, as he and the alien crew battle a supernova, a black hole, and a ferocious space storm. But even greater dangers lie ahead when Jim discovers that his trusted friend Silver is actually a scheming pirate with mutiny on his mind. So, what do I personally think of this movie? Well, after I saw this movie in theaters with my family, I thought that this was a really thrilling ride, and like Atlantis, this is another underrated Disney film. But, unfortunately, this movie became one of Disney's biggest box office bombs. And I think the reason why it bombed is because of competition with the second Harry Potter movie. But let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, believe it or not, this film took roughly 4.5 years to create. It was co-written, co-produced, and directed by the legendary directing duo of John Musker and Ron Clements, who also directed The Great Mouse Detective, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, The Princess and the Frog, and Moana. After several failed pitches, Musker and Clements approached Roy E. Disney, who backed the filmmakers and made his wishes known to Michael Eisner, who in turn agreed that the studio should produce the movie. In 1995, their contract was renegotiated to allow them to commence development on Treasure Planet when Hercules reached completion. Principal animation for the movie began in 2000, with roughly 350 crew members working on it. In 2002, Roy Connolly estimated that there were around 1,027 crew members listed in the screen credits, with about 400 artists and computer artists, and about 150 musicians and another 200 technologists. According to Connolly, Ron Clements wanted to create a space world that was warm and had more life to it than you could normally think about in a sci-fi action movie, as opposed to the stainless steel blue smoke coming from the bowels of heavily pipe-laden treatment of sci-fi. In order to make the movie fun by creating more exciting action sequences and because they believed that having the characters wear spacesuits and helmets would take all the romance out of it, the crew created the concept of the Etherium, which is an outer space filled with atmosphere. Now, recently, I discovered that this movie is actually the second retelling of Treasure Island in an outer space setting, following the 1987 Italian miniseries Treasure Island in Outer Space. Now, in my opinion, this movie does great with mixing traditional 2D hand-drawn animation with computer-generated environments. Plus, I like how the RMS Legacy is a sailing spaceship, which is pretty clever for a movie like this. And I also like the steampunk technology that this movie features. Also, I think the outer space scenery is really breathtaking, and the musical score by James Newton Howard is really epic. Also, I think it was really shocking that Treasure Planet is revealed to be a huge space station. And the scene when the RMS Legacy has to face a dangerous supernova and escape a black hole is really intense, especially during the scene when the crew have to escape Treasure Planet before it explodes. However, I kind of have two little nitpicks with this movie. One is the mixture of humans, aliens, robots, and cyborg characters, which kind of gives me some Star Wars flashbacks. And I think the songs by John Resnick is kind of forgettable. But on the other hand, I think this movie might make it a nice level idea for a future Kingdom Hearts game, due to the solar sailors being kind of similar to the Keyblade gliders. And now, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. For the voice of Jim Hawkins, Disney hired Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who got to be in Angels in the Outfield, Halloween H2O, and Hayao Miyazaki's The Wind Rises. Now, Jim is a teenage adolescent pinning for adventure, and in my eyes, Jim is kind of similar to Aladdin, due to his adventurous, rebellious, and caring personality, and he has a habit of getting into trouble sometimes. Plus, Jim's backstory when his father left him and his mom was very heartbreaking. Also, Jim's main goal to find Treasure Planet is not only for adventure, but to use the planet's vast wealth to better his mother's life as well as his own. Next we have Dr. Delbert Doppler, an anthropomorphic dog figure and astronomer voiced by David Hyde Pierce, who voiced Slim in A Bug's Life and Drix in Osmosis Jones. Now, Doppler is like a combination of Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney from Treasure Island. Doppler becomes Jim's guardian during their voyage to find Treasure Planet. In my eyes, Doppler is a classic but clumsy astronomer who loves making new discoveries and exploring. However, Doppler is not good with weapons, and he can be a tad socially awkward, and he does not like being insulted. However, Doppler is brave and loyal, managing to protect his friends and stand up to the bad guys when the situation calls for it. Next we come to the Legacy's captain, Captain Amelia, an anthropomorphic cat voiced by Emma Thompson. best known as Nanny McPhee, Professor Trelawney from the Harry Potter film series, Queen Eleanor from Pixar's Brave, P.L. Travers from Saving Mr. Banks, and of course, Mrs. Potts from the 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Also, next year, she'll make an appearance in the upcoming Cruella movie. Now, Amelia is an analog to Captain Alexander Smollett from Treasure Island, and her ship is based on the Hispaniola from the book. To me, Amelia is proud, strong-minded, and businesslike, and as a captain, she has a high demand for her crew, and she's quick to appreciate talent, though not as quick to sniff out fishy situations. Plus, she frequently demonstrates exceptional leadership and navigational skills. However, I kind of find the relationship between Amelia and Doppler kind of weird, since, dogs and cats don't mix normally. Next we come to Jim's mentor and villain of the movie, John Silver, voiced by Brian Murray. Silver begins as the Legacy's cook, who's assigned to look after Jim and gives him some work on the ship. However, as the journey passes and Silver gets to know how strong-willed and determined Jim is, they form a father-son relationship. And in my opinion, I think Silver's arm is just so cool that it could make Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character really jealous. However, when the Legacy gets close to Treasure Planet, Silver is revealed to be a greedy, ruthless pirate captain who's dedicated his life to finding Treasure Planet and achieving ultimate prosperity. We also have Morph, a small morphing pink blob of space goo vocalized by sound editor Dane Davis, who got to be in the Matrix films. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Morph is a really cute, sneaky, and funny character. He's been assigned by Silver to keep watch on Jim. Plus, I think Morph is very handy with his morphing abilities. Next we have Scroop, a vicious spider-slash-crab-like crewman voiced by Michael Wincott, who got to be Dr. Osmond in the 2017 Ghost in the Shell movie. Scroop is a rough analog to Israel Hands from the book. Now, to me, Scroop is very cruel, murderous, greedy, and devious. And I think he's a lot more villainous than Silver. One of his most despicable plans is when he kills others stealthily, like when he lets Mr. Arrow fall into the black hole. And I think it was kind of dumb when he and the other mutineers were discussing their plans out on the open deck while Jim was working. Despite his dangerous and bloodthirsty nature, Scroop is surprisingly obedient and cooperative. However, he would most likely take everything for himself and remove anyone else from his way. Another character to talk about is Ben, or Bioelectronic Navigator, voiced by Martin Short. His name is a reference to Ben Gunn from the original book. Ben is an eccentric robot that originally served as the navigator of Captain Nathaniel Flint. That is, until Flint stranded him on Treasure Planet and removed his memory chip to keep him from revealing his self-destruct mode for the planet. In my eyes, Ben is another fun character, mostly due to Martin Short's acting. Plus, it is pretty interesting that Ben is the only fully CGI character in the entire movie. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, like Atlantis, Treasure Planet is another underrated animated film from the House of Mouse. And I think it does great giving a sci-fi touch to the original Robert Louis Stevenson novel. The main character, Jim, is quite an adventurer and a relatable character. The side characters like Dr. Doppler, Amelia, Morph, and Ben are memorable and interesting. And John Silver, while still a villainous space pirate, was still a great mentor and a decent father figure to Jim. Plus, I think the animation is absolutely out of this world, and I absolutely love the steampunk technology. So, while this movie was a huge bomb at the box office, I think you viewers should check this movie out, especially if you like sci-fi adventure movies. But, if you plan on having your kids watch this, make sure you watch it with them. And don't worry, you'll both have a great time. I give this movie a 92% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me next time, because we're going to do some digging at Camp Green Lake. Mustang power!